Some of you may have heard of him. He's running for something, I think, here in the Pennsylvania governor, something like that, Jeff Bartos. He was a Republican nominee for lieutenant governor back in 2018. He was born and bred in Berks County, went to Lancaster, I think Country Day. Did I say that right? Lancaster Country Day. He's back there going, yeah, keep going, keep going. So Lancaster Country Day. And he is a guy who is standing up for small business. He's got something called the 30-Day Fund that he's going to tell you about today, the Pennsylvania 30-Day Fund, which is really a neat idea. And again, it's something you'll hear about as he runs for governor here in the state of Pennsylvania on the Republican ticket. In keeping with our theme all day, though, Jeff and his wife Cheryl have two daughters, Emily and Sarah. I didn't find much about Emily and Sarah, but I did find a lot about Penny, who's their family dog. So Penny's in here too, and he's got some kind of slogan that Penny's going to use to run for governor with him. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor, and with all seriousness, welcoming Mr. Jeff Bartos. Jeff.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. How is everyone? I think we've all been on a little bit of a high since May 18th when we sent that message to Governor Wolf, and I know we have members of the legislature in here, so thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies, for all your good work. We're on our way. So a year ago, when Governor Wolf shut the state down, I quickly realized that small businesses in my community, in the southeastern part of the state, we're really going to struggle, many of them, to get any help from the state or federal government in any kind of timeline that they would need to survive. So I acted. I formed a nonprofit, and on May 6th, we opened a portal where applications from small businesses all around the state poured in. On May 8th, just 2 days later, on a Friday night, my new board that I had started this organization with, we met for 4 hours on that Friday night, reviewing applications from all over the state. And by the time that weekend was done, we had had 3 meetings, and we approved our first 24 businesses in what became known around the state as the Pennsylvania 30-Day Fund. What began as a modest effort in our community at the beginning of the pandemic blossomed into a statewide effort that today has raised $3.5 million and helped over 1,000 women and men keep the lights on, keep their dreams alive, and keep their employees intact, saving thousands and thousands of jobs for working families. As a small business owner myself, I thought it was important when we delivered this good news to every small business owner that we call them. We don't just send them money, but we call them. And on those calls, which I personally have made over 600 this last year, when we called them, I always told our team, before you give them the good news, ask them, how are you? Think about that if our government would ask citizens, how are you? So we asked, how are you? And I know there are small business owners in this room. Over the last year, when I asked that question to people, how are you? I heard from 30 seconds to 15 straight minutes, sometimes without the person on the other end of the phone taking a breath, exactly how they were. And those conversations are exactly what you would imagine. The small business owners, almost to a person, said the following: I'm worried about my employees. I'm worried about their families. I'm worried about my own family. I'm worried about the street where my business is on. I'm worried about Phyllis down the road who's running a third-generation business. I'm worried. I'm scared. Let me tell you about 3 of those conversations that I will never forget. One from last May, one from this past February, and one from just a couple weeks ago. Last May, I called Greg. Greg's a plumber in Philadelphia. Man in his mid-50s, worked for another company for years, has owned his own business for the last 5 or 6 years. And when I called Greg and asked him how he was doing, Greg said to me, Jeff, I feel stupid. I said, what do you mean you feel stupid? He said, I feel stupid. I feel like I should have seen this coming. I feel like I let my family down. I feel like I let my employees down. I feel like I let my community down. And then he followed with these very poignant words. He said, you know, I didn't go to the Wharton School. I don't have a fancy degree, but I was running a good plumbing business. And then just recently, just in the last couple of weeks, when the governor shut us down, everything came to a screeching halt. And I said, Greg, I'm a lawyer by training. I've run for office. I'm a small business owner. I didn't see this coming. I have lots of friends with lots of fancy degrees from lots of fancy schools. They didn't see it coming. I have friends running multi-billion-dollar businesses. They didn't see it coming. I said, if they didn't see it coming, how could you and I have seen this coming? And Greg said, you're right, but I can't sleep. This is just devastating me. I said, well, look, let me lighten your load. I'm going to send you $3,000 from our nonprofit. We're here to help you. We got your back. And with that, Greg started crying. Slow at first, softly at first, building to a roar. We've all had that experience in our lives when we lost loved ones or had loss in other ways. And when Greg started crying like that, I started crying. And that went on for about 45 seconds. And I remember thinking as we got through this very cathartic minute of just letting out the emotions that had been hurting all of us and driving us a little, making us all very sad over the last couple months, Greg said to me, you're an angel. You and your team are providing me hope. I haven't felt hope in 2 months. Now, reflecting on that conversation, reflecting on what that meant to me at the time as someone who started this organization, I reflected also on what our government had done to the soul of an entrepreneur in the 5th largest city in the United States, the birthplace of our liberty and freedom. That this man who was running his own business and taking care of his employees and providing a good service to the citizens of Philadelphia had been brought to tears, had literally been broken by a government that did not care, could not care, couldn't possibly understand what that small business owner, what Greg was going through. I will never forget that conversation so long as I live. I will never forget the power of that emotion, and I will never forget what it meant to listen to a citizen who had been broken by a government that did not care. The next conversation is a little more cheery and a little more fighting. I spoke to Kim, a business owner of a coffee shop in Lancaster County in February. I called her and said, how you doing? And she said, I have a confession to make. And I said, well, I'm not a priest. And I don't practice law anymore, so maybe you want to be careful what you say. And she said, no, I have a confession. I said, oh, seriously, please don't. She said, well, I'm going to tell you anyway. She said, I broke the law. And then I really said, whoa, She said, I complied with every stupid order that Tom Wolf sent my way from the beginning of the pandemic till December. Every stupid rule. You can half capacity, 10% capacity, 80% capacity. You can serve a Danish but not a donut. Coffee with almond milk but not regular milk. Remember the rules about you have to have a pretzel or a meal with a beer, but only before 10:30 East Coast time. Yeah, all that. And she said, you know what? I complied with every stupid rule that he and Rachel Levine put out. But when they told us in December that we had to close, I told my team I would rather go to jail, I would rather pay a fine, I would rather be put into bankruptcy than lay off single moms at Christmas time. Kim is a gutsy woman, and there are a lot of Kims around Pennsylvania. I have a privilege to speak to hundreds of them over the last year. And I have to tell you, I could not wait to meet her and hand her the check from the nonprofit, because that fighting spirit is at the core of who we are as Pennsylvanians. We always have been. The final conversation was just a couple months ago in Oil City, Pennsylvania, this time in person. This was a business that we had helped last summer, and I was making my way from Erie back to the Philadelphia area, as one does, and it's a short drive, and we stopped at Casey's restaurant in Oil City, and I sat down with Jamie. Excellent, by the way, sausage roll, amazing, you should go there. And I asked her, I said, how you doing? And she said, Well, I really appreciate the help that you and your group gave us last summer. It meant a lot. And I never get tired of hearing that. But what she said next really, really struck me. She said, you know, Jeff, as time went on, my community would not let me fail. Now think about that. My community would not let me fail. If there is one creed that runs across all conservative values I think that we hold dear, that sentence encapsulates it. It captures it. We don't believe that the big hand of government or some giant entity is going to save us. And frankly, we're not looking for that. Our community, our fellowship, our faith, our families, what we have together, the bonds, the ties that bind us, that is what got so many small business owners through the pandemic. And what she meant by that, because I asked her, what do you mean by that? She said, well, people came in and bought gift cards even though they had no intention of ever using them. They sent food to EMS and hospital workers, nurses, paramedics, firefighters, police officers. We were as busy as we could be with takeout because people would not let us fail. That, my friends, is at the core, as I said, of who we are as conservatives. It's at the core, I think, of what makes us the Commonwealth that we are. And I saw this time and time and time again. And over the last 2 months, as I travel around the state, I hear this time and time and time again. So some universal observations from a year of trying to rescue Main Street, Pennsylvania. As I said, the business owners were always grateful for the help, for the funding. But perhaps more so, they were always grateful and always remembered the hope that we provided, that a group of strangers came together to help them and to let them know that they mattered, that they were, yes, essential, that they were not forgotten, that we listened, and it's so important, we listened and we cared. Lots of politicians talk about small business being the backbone of our communities. But how many of them have any real-world experience with running a small business? If these lights weren't so bright, I would ask you to put up your hands how many small business people there are out there, but I wouldn't see them. So later at dinner, we'll talk about it. A columnist captured this disconnect between the elites and Main Street very well in December when she observed that the elites in our society are so removed from the day-to-day struggles of Main Street that they fail to even realize that the shuttering of a store is quite literally the death of a dream. So my friends, this is the fight that I have been leading over the past year, and it has brought out the best of Pennsylvanians who truly have each other's backs at this most critical time in our nation's history. Briefly looking forward, as I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, the message that we sent to Governor Wolf and frankly to the entire nation on May 18th was as follows: we will not be crushed. We will not be kept down. We will not live under an oppressive rule of one man or one woman sitting in a governor's office anywhere in any state capital, anywhere in the United States. In the lead up to May 18th, I often said that the eyes of the nation were upon Pennsylvania yet again. And when it is written, when we win the governor's race and the Senate race in 2022, it will be written that the first shot in the battle to restore liberty and freedom was fired in Pennsylvania in May of 2021. That the Commonwealth, where our nation was born in 1776, where our nation was saved in Gettysburg in 1863, where the furnaces of Western Pennsylvania saved our nation yet again in 1944 and 1945 in World War II. In 2021, when that first shot was fired and the message was sent that constitutional liberty and the balance of power would be restored in the birthplace of America, in 2022, we will send the message. We will send the message that a full rebirth and renewal of American freedom and American liberty was born right here in the Commonwealth that we all love. I look forward to working with all of you over the next couple of years. God bless all of you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you so much.